ChatGPT is getting a lot of attention right now. Some of it good, some of it not so good, and it feels like we're collectively all trying to figure out how we feel about it, if it's something that we want to use. I recently made a video rating ChatGPT data analyst project recommendations, and it reinforced to me, it highlighted again to me the importance of how we structure questions and the answer we get. That is, asking good questions can really significantly change the outcome of the answer, which can then change the outcome of the action that we take. This isn't news to me. I've worked in the analytics space for over 15 years. I teach a course about thinking like an analyst, and part of that is asking good questions and sometimes asking multiple questions to make sure that we're getting to the heart of what needs to be done and not just how we immediately think to phrase the question. Because a lot of times we jump to solutions rather than actually framing a problem statement or a question in the way that we need to and would be most helpful. That leads me to this video. Let's talk about ChatGPT and the importance of good questions. If we think about this from a business perspective, most companies pride themselves on giving customers what they want. You might too, whether those are internal or external customers. We all have some sort of customer as a product of the work that we're doing. When we have customers come to us and tell us that they want something specific, sometimes they might be framing that in a way that lets us deliver what they need to them, and other times what they're asking for isn't actually what they really want. Sometimes those requests are going to be really straightforward and there's no ambiguity in what's being asked. But other times, how that question is structured highly changes the result we got. So if I look back at the video I did on rating ChatGPT data analyst project recommendation, I asked 6 different questions. I'll put them up on the screen now. I think when I look at these, that these sound like very much the same question, or if we were having a conversation, you might see these as the same question. We're talking about best data analyst project, #1 portfolio project, best project for a career change, top project, #1, top, best. These all sound like words that mean the same thing. But what I found is the answer ChatGPT gave me was very different for different ones of these. I had some that were a little bit similar, but they were by and large, most of them were quite different from each other. And if I just went into it assuming that the answers it gave me were indeed answers to my question, then I would be running into some problems. I might be doing some things that aren't entirely accurate. Now, you can say ChatGPT is still learning, and that's true. That's really how all of these models are built. They're meant to continually learn. ChatGPT warns you not everything is accurate. That's always going to be the case. There's always going to be more learning that could happen in that model. Knowing how to ask a good question and evaluate whether the answer is actually responding to your question can really help though, whether it's with ChatGPT or just in general, answering questions, asking questions, making sure that communication isn't lost along the way. Taking this from a data analyst angle, the real value of data analysts and business analysts in a company is helping to decipher what the problem is and come up with solutions that answer to the actual problem, that solve the actual problem. A lot of times this involves asking a series of questions to get to the heart of what really needs to be accomplished versus just what's being asked. There's some cues that we can take from the analytics process to help us evaluate the ChatGPT answers we're getting. For instance, with ChatGPT, when I type in a prompt that I'm looking for a response to, it restates what it's capturing that as. In many cases, the restatement on the set of 6 questions I asked was very similar to the question I asked. But there was one case where I got a wildly different restatement, still in the same realm of topics, but definitely not the question I asked. When I asked for the #1 project for aspiring data analysts, I got a definition of crisp DM and that process back instead. While this is related, it's in the analytics space, it's not a project. And if you look at the details, and you can go back and watch the video if you want to know more about the details of what it told me, it guides you in a way that would not be practical for someone that's aspiring to get into a data analyst job to do. There are steps of that process that are only practical when you're in a working environment doing the job that you couldn't do in a project environment. environment. So if I was trying to make a career change and I would go there and ask it for a project and it gave me that, I might feel a little frustrated. I might feel a little lost, like I couldn't accomplish it because it's something that would be very hard to do. But the answer I got also wasn't the answer to the question I asked. It was the answer to something that it thought was similar. And that's something to be aware of when you ask questions. It is very common for us to substitute knowledge we have where things don't make sense or are more complex. So here it's substituting this for some reason, seeing them as equivalent, even though they're not. That's a quick check you can do when you're asking questions or verifying, validating the information you're getting back. Is this actually answering what I asked, or is it answering something that's a little bit different or maybe vastly different that was a little simpler for it to answer? This isn't a new problem with ChatGPT. It's just another opportunity to highlight this as something that's important. It's this aspect of critical thinking, of analytical thinking, that brings a lot of value into what people do in the workplace, especially as data analysts. But anything that you're doing where you're analyzing information, it's helpful to think about these questions. We've certainly all run into it before, or at least I've run into cases where I type something into Google, I didn't get the results I wanted, I typed it a slightly different way, and I got the answers that I was looking for. Or I was searching a site, I was shopping for something, I searched for something that in my mind is how people would categorize it, and didn't quite get at what I wanted, restated the search, and got something that more aligned with it. I'm not actively thinking through this analytical thinking process about the questions and whatnot in those moments, but I am evaluating the information and not just taking it as face value as accurate. That's something to be aware of, to be careful of when you're using ChatGPT or any of these AI machine learning generating models, that they are very much learning. They're not authorities on it. They can be really helpful, but you also have to be aware of the responses you're getting and how they fit. If you have interest in learning a lot more about thinking like an analyst, I'll link below to my course, Think Like an Analyst, where we dive a lot more into asking good questions, but really also the entire analytical thinking process, how to be more effective at what you're doing, how to evaluate information, how to communicate it in a good way. Thank you so much for watching.